Hey there. So recently someone commented on one of my videos, to paraphrase, how can you believe in God if you're so smart? And I thought about this all day. I saw it at like 10 a.m. and I thought about it all day, and I was getting ready to write some long essay, and I decided that I wanted to turn that into a video topic. First of all, thank you so much for saying I'm smart, or even so smart. That's nice of you. And second of all, this is just a really important topic, and I probably would have talked about it anyway, but I'm glad that at least someone out there really wants to know. So I have a vague outline. I'm cheating. I'm sort of looking at an outline, just to sort of organize my thoughts, and I've broken it down into 4 reasons why I believe in Christianity as a smart person. So let's just jump right in. The first is exposure/tradition. So it's true. I grew up in a Christian household, and that means I'm more likely to be a Christian as an adult. You can call it bias, you can call it indoctrination, you can call it whatever you want. But I think as a Christian, it's the job of Christian parents to raise their kids as Christians. Not because I don't think people can come to the faith on their own, but because I think the message is so important that it ought to be spread. But I do have that bias, and that is what started me on this path, and why I was exposed to so much, and I think why I was able to make the choice myself to be a Christian, because I'd had this opportunity to sort of see it in action instead of just reading about it in theory and contrasting that with the worst pieces that make it to the news and surface on the internet, whatever. So that's definitely the first reason. The second reason is that science doesn't give us all the answers. And this isn't really a reason specifically to believe in God as much as it's a reason not to completely discount the idea. My camera cut out. Anyway, so science doesn't tell us everything. Obviously science doesn't tell us, how life exists. We know where life comes from, life begets life, and we know all about, reproduction and things of that nature and how things exist, but we don't know, what this spark of life is. And even if we have life, we don't know where consciousness comes from. At what point does a fetus gain a consciousness and shift from a clump of cells to a human being? Who knows? And even if we found that point, we couldn't explain why. But more than that, science doesn't tell us how a cell could evolve, because all multicellular organisms evolve from a single cellular organism. Sure, I can accept that. In fact, I do. I don't think science discredits God in any way. But where does a cell come from? So a cell is made up of these things called organelles, and all the organelles are so interdependent on each other that they couldn't have developed independent of each other. They can't evolve because they can't exist without each other. And so, obviously evolution is a thing, and obviously the world wasn't created in 7 days, and dinosaurs did walk the earth. They weren't a giant fabrication. And, the Bible is not a scientific text. But I believe that all truth is God's truth, and that pursuing science is something Christians ought to do, because we ought to learn as much as possible. And we ought to glorify God by enjoying His creation. Man, my camera does not like me today. Anyway, so I think science teaches us a bunch of cool things, but ultimately, when we reach a point where we don't know anymore, a good explanation is some sort of intelligent design, some creator being who you might be able to label God. Yeah. So the third reason is definitely not a scientific thing. It's this period of my life that lasted like 5 minutes that I call the vision. So I am a very critical person. I analyze all sorts of things. And when I was in middle school, I analyzed the heck out of church trips, and I picked them apart to determine where they were manipulating us. And I didn't necessarily think manipulation was bad. I just wanted to know why we were thinking the thoughts we were thinking. Like, how did the music play and how did the lights play and whatever. It's great use if you're ever going to be, like, directing or designing something in, like, theater or a movie. But it's also great to know why you're experiencing the things you're experiencing. And so I would pick these apart and try my best to discern logical explanations for where these feelings came from. And I did this as a response to this vision I had when I was a rising 6th grader, so the summer before 6th grade. I went on a trip called The Great Escape, and the pastor, speaker, preacher, person, I don't actually know if they were a pastor or not, but the speaker was talking about this one Bible story from the New Testament where Jesus has just finished teaching, and he has sent the disciples across the Sea of Galilee on a boat. And the Sea of Galilee is very windy, blah, blah, blah. Lo and behold, there's a storm, and Jesus walks on the water out to his disciples in a boat. And he specifically calls Simon Peter out to walk on the water, and Peter does, until he realizes, what the frick, I'm walking on water, and he doubts his ability to do so. He doubts Jesus' ability to allow him to do so, and he sinks, and Jesus extends a hand out towards him. So I'm hearing this, and all of a sudden, like, my vision goes blank, black, whatever, and there's just this hand that is reaching out towards me from the heavens, and I am just convinced that it's the hand of God, and I am crying because, lo and behold, God is reaching out to me, who is drowning in the middle of an ocean of sin, because I do not have enough faith that God can keep me afloat, and his forgiveness can keep me out of the waters of the consequences of sin. So I had this vision, and then middle school was, like, the worst time of my life. Isn't that, like, everybody's experience? And so I didn't have, like, any faith to speak of until 8th grade again. So for 2 years I was, like, self-identifying as an atheist. I still went to church and stuff, and to my religious private school, but there was no faith there. And so I looked back and I tried to pick apart how that happened. And, like, I got close. I was like, okay, there was this dramatic music. The speaker's voice was, like, super passionate and super convincing. Whatever. Maybe it was the smell and the fact that I was with all these other Christians. But I never could really come to any sort of conclusion as to why I received this vision. And so the only thing left once you're out of natural explanations, once there are no more empirical variables, then all that's left are non-empirical variables, a la vision from God. If that was the only thing in my life that was evidence to me of God, I probably would not believe it. But it just fits in with the things I've learned, the things I've read in the Bible, and other minute experiences, which I say minute, but they're all, like, miracles and whatever, and just the presence I feel. And the final reason I believe in God can be viewed as delusion, and can also be viewed as acceptance of a greater reality. The fact is that the alternative is unbearable. Those 2 years in middle school where I didn't have any faith were 2 years in which I was a very suicidal person. It was when I first I first realized I had some form of depression, and I used to think it was when I first had it, but then I remembered, like, I read that journal, and I clearly already was hating life, so. They were awful, and I just wanted to die. And then I found my faith again. Well, really, God gave it to me, but I found my faith again. And there is a motivation for life. And this is so weird to talk about to non-Christians, because they're just like, you should live anyway, live for experiences and whatever. But life is, I have found that life isn't worth living without God. Does this mean that I'm telling everyone who's not a Christian to, like, go kill themselves? No, please don't. And here's the thing. Christianity tells us that everybody is made in the image of God. And that is why human life is valuable, because we are made as reflections of God. And so everyone, whether they're a Christian or not, has this image of God within them. And you are worth it. And even if I wasn't a Christian, I'd be telling you, you are worth it. There's so many things in life to experience. But my strongest selling point for myself, when I am in a dark place, when I am in a dark night, when I am thinking about why I'm sticking around, the first, most common, and strongest argument I come to is that life is worth living because I am not living it alone, because God is there for me, and because He has a purpose for me. And I don't have to worry about figuring out what I want to do with my life, because God knows what He wants me to do. And I am just filled with such peace and comfort and joy. And it's weird because, like, I have depression, but I'm also an incredibly joyful person. And that joy comes from God. So, like I said, call it delusion if you want, that's fine. It's not really my place to tell you you're wrong, though I think you are. Very much so. In fact, I would argue that I know so, but that's a kind of different conversation. But believing in God gives me the strength to face each day. So, in conclusion, I believe in God because I was raised in a Christian household, so I had this great foundation. There's not enough answers just from science alone, and maybe one day we'll discover how everything works, and then we can marvel at how everything illustrates God and His truths. Because, like, why does the universe operate under certain laws? Like, if it's just a random thing, why would there be any sort of regulation to it? And these laws like the law of gravity, are universal, eternal, and, there's some other word, I don't know, universal, eternal, and constant, and those are three attributes of God. So science very clear, to me, not only does science not have all the answers, but the answers it does have point to some sort of intelligent design. The third reason is life experience is specifically a vision that cannot really be explained fully any other way. And the fourth is the alternative is unbearable. And also, it's really weird that my camera's been freaking out so much this video. Not to say that, like, the devil's trying to stop me from making this video, but, I mean, I believe in predestination, so I believe in no coincidences. Finally, I just want to share this quote. So there's this dude named C.S. Lewis who's really famous. He wrote this book series, The Chronicles of Narnia. He also wrote a bunch of sci-fi. He was a great Christian writer, and he once said, "I believe in Christianity in the same way that I believe the sun has risen. Not because I see it, but because I see everything else by it." And so, from the outside looking in, Christianity is very, very bizarre. There's, like, zombieism, kind of, and then also, like, are we being cannibals with communion, and also the Trinity, what? And also this book that, like, is awful, 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 if you, like, interpret its laws as laws. But from the inside, if you look at the world through Christianity, instead of just looking at Christianity from the world, then suddenly everything makes more sense. And so that's why I believe in Christianity as a so-called smart person. I hope you have a great day.